It was a crisp fall afternoon, the kind of day made for riding. The trees along the backroads were a blaze of red, orange, and gold, with leaves scattering across the pavement in waves. I'd been waiting for this kind of weather all year, and I wasn't about to waste it. My motorcycle purred beneath me, and I felt every bump and curve in the road as I cruised through the countryside. There's a kind of freedom that comes with riding, an escape from everything. Just me, the road, and the hum of the engine. I'd been riding down the back roads for a while, taking in the quiet scenery. It was one of those remote routes with no cars in sight, no houses, just an endless stretch of winding road through the woods. I didn't mind. In fact, I preferred it that way. There was something peaceful about the solitude, the feeling of being completely alone. As I rounded a bend, something massive and dark suddenly darted across the road ahead of me. My heart jumped, and I instinctively squeezed the brakes hard, skidding across a patch of leaves. The tires locked, and I felt the bike fishtail before I lost control and veered off the road, landing in a shallow ditch. I struggled to keep myself upright, but ended up falling to my side with the motorcycle pinning my leg slightly. For a second, I just lay there, my mind racing to catch up with what I'd seen. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't a bear. Whatever it was, it moved on two legs, big, heavy strides that covered the distance between the trees in a matter of seconds. I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Tall, wide shoulders and covered in hair. My breathing was fast and my heart was pounding. I knew what I'd seen, but my brain was having a hard time believing it. And then I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps, like something was coming closer. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help it. I lifted my head, and there it was, standing just a few feet away from me, watching me with an almost curious look in its eyes. The creature was massive, towering over me even from a few yards away. Its face was dark, with deep-set eyes that seemed to glint in the late afternoon light. It looked like something straight out of a nightmare, wild, primal, and unmistakably real. I felt a surge of fear, unlike anything I'd ever felt before. My heart was hammering so loudly that it drowned out the sounds of the forest. My body was frozen, every instinct screaming at me to get away, but I was stuck, helpless beneath the weight of my motorcycle. I didn't dare move, didn't even breathe as the creature took a step closer, then another, until it was standing right in front of me. Its eyes held mine for a long moment, and I couldn't look away. There was something almost intelligent in its gaze, something that suggested it was thinking, processing what it saw. And then, to my surprise, it reached down and lifted the motorcycle off of me as if it weighed nothing at all. I could feel the power in its hands, see the muscles shifting beneath its fur as it hoisted the bike upright and set it down on its wheels. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline flooding my system. My mind was spinning, caught between fear and disbelief. What was it doing? Why was it helping me? The creature looked at me one more time, its gaze intense but calm. It didn't seem aggressive, but there was a weight to its presence that made my skin crawl. For a moment, we just stared at each other in silence. I could see every detail. The broad, flat nose, the way the hair framed its face, the massive hands that had just lifted my bike like it was a toy. Then, without a sound, it turned and started walking back toward the woods. I watched as it moved away, its figure blending into the shadows of the trees until it disappeared completely. I stayed rooted to the spot and my heart racing, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. Part of me wanted to run, to get as far away from that place as possible, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I stood there, staring at the spot where it had vanished, half expecting it to come back. Eventually, I forced myself to climb back onto my bike, my hands shaking as I gripped the handlebars. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the road, and I knew I needed to get out of there before it got dark. I revved the engine and took off, not daring to look back. As I rode away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that somewhere in those woods, those dark eyes were still on me. I didn't tell anyone about what I saw that day. Who would believe me? They'd laugh, call me crazy, or say I just imagined it. But I know what I saw. I can still see it, clear as day, standing there on that empty road, lifting my bike like it was nothing and looking at me with those dark, knowing eyes. Every fall, when the leaves start to turn and the air gets that crisp edge, I remember that day. And sometimes when I'm riding down those same back roads, I catch myself glancing into the trees, half expecting to see it again, watching, waiting. I don't know why it helped me, and maybe I never will. But there's one thing I know for sure. Whatever it wasn't just an animal. It was something more, something I can't explain. And even though it's been years, I can't shake the feeling that somewhere out there it remembers me too.